Good morning, y'all. Hope everybody is staying warm out there. We're back with another edition of DNVR Rams Live. We're going solo this week, another week without Dre. Unfortunately, that's not his fault. That's my fault. I can't get down to Denver. But it sounds like it's kind of a crapshoot down there with the snow anyway. So I'm probably lucking out in the end. Got a fun show planned for you guys. We're going to play some video from Jay Norvell this week to kind of set the scene for a really important month as a whole. Also start to kind of talk about the border war, which obviously is not this weekend. We've got the bye, CSU and Wyoming, both off this weekend. But there's a lot of Mountain West action to get into, and we're going to give power rankings. I'm going to give some picks against the spread this weekend, kind of preview this month and lay out, how this can be a November to remember for CSU. Yeah, I talked about, when the Rams were 2-2, your seasons aren't defined in September. They're defined as the year progresses, and obviously the Rams have really done a nice job of recovering here. They're 5-1 over the last 6 weeks. They're undefeated in league play, and they have an opportunity here if they can seize the moment to really make this one of the more memorable years in CSU football history, at least in modern CSU football history. I understand a bowl bid doesn't mean what it used to. But the more wins you can rack up here as the season goes on, the better type of postseason opportunity you're going to get. We'll lay all that out, what their path to the title game looks like. A slim shot technically at hosting the title game if Boise State were to slip up. I don't expect it based on their remaining schedule, but you never know. So we'll talk about all of that. I wanted to start here just with a couple of thoughts on the initial college football playoff rankings, and then we'll get into some CSU bowl projections. 4 Big Ten teams, 4 SEC teams. Unsurprising that they got 2/3 of the initial field. Cracks me up. These conferences are so selfish. They've got 8 out of the 12 in the first ranking. They're probably going to get 8 out of 12 in the actual college football playoff ranking, and they want more. That's not enough for them. They want their entire league to make it, and it's ridiculous. Not a lot of love for the Big 12 or the ACC. Only one team apiece in the top 12. BYU probably lower than I would have anticipated at 9th. Not a lot of respect for their undefeated resume. They've definitely gotten lucky a couple of times as the year has gone on. I personally thought that Georgia should be second. Obviously, if you missed it, I guess I should run through it real quick. Oregon first, Ohio State second, Georgia 3, Miami 4, Texas 5. Penn State 6, Tennessee 7, Indiana 8, BYU 9th, Notre Dame 10th, Alabama 11th, and Boise State 12th. A lot of love and respect for Boise State in these initial rankings. I'll talk about that more in just a second. But like I said, I would have put Georgia second. I understand the logic of having Ohio State second, especially if Oregon is number 1, their only loss being Oregon. But I think Georgia's win against Texas is significantly more impressive than any win that Ohio State has so far this season. Kind of cool to see Indiana getting a little bit of love. But what I think is going to be interesting to monitor from the Mountain West standpoint is, can they potentially, leapfrog either the ACC or the Big 12 and get the 4th highest rated conference champion? You got to remember, just because BYU is 9th, they would actually get a bye based on the way that these playoff formats work. You have to be a conference champion to get a bye. The 4 highest rated conference champions get a bye. So if Boise State, for instance, could get to like 9th or 8th, and you're sitting there with the Big 12 champ, maybe 10th or 11th, the ACC champ, depending on who it were to be, there is a world there where Boise State potentially could get a bye, or I don't think at this point, if anybody else from the league were to win it, they'd be getting a bye. Maybe would still get into the playoff. They'd probably need some help there. But just kind of an interesting setting for this playoff. And you've got a really interesting month coming up for the conference as a whole, for Boise State, for everybody. But I did feel like it was pretty cool to see the conference get that type of validation. And while there's already a significant portion of the Boise State fan base that is back to puffing their chests, given the same type of pretentious attitude they've had since the day they came into this conference, really annoying online. This is this is why you would want them in your league. And I think that there were some people that kind of turned their nose up at Boise State as a university in terms of what they bring to the table with the rebuilt Pac-12. But when it comes to a national football brand, there's no doubt that they just have validity in a way that none of the other teams do at this point. And it obviously kind of goes back to that run in the mid to late 2000s there, and then they've sustained a lot of success. I don't think they are what they used to be, but this team with Ashton Gianti is pretty dang crazy. And if you're CSU, you're basically just hoping for an opportunity to potentially, get to square off with them. Obviously, going to Boise, playing that team would not be an easy task, but I mean, even getting to the Mountain West title game, that would be a big feat for this program, especially if they were able to win out, down the stretch here in the regular season, get that second trophy win, big senior day win. We'll talk about all of that. But interesting first playoff rankings. I think Oregon being one makes a lot of sense based on their win over Ohio State. Bama still being in the top 12 isn't shocking to me. I know a lot of people will roll their eyes at that, but beating Georgia, that's still one of the best wins in the country this year. And they don't really have a bad loss. They don't have the style points either. And admittedly, as a Bama supporter, I'm pretty skeptical of them actually making any real noise at this point. I just think they're too leaky on the defensive side. I'm pretty skeptical of Tennessee too, to be honest, despite the fact that they beat Bama. I'm not trying to be a hater. I don't think Tennessee, Ole Miss, any of those teams are championship caliber. I feel like really, you've got Texas, you've got Georgia, Ohio State. I still think, despite their offense being a little bit up and down, Oregon's been great this year. Indiana's the team I'm most interested to see as the season progresses. Can they keep up this hot stretch? Could they potentially, pull off a win over Ohio State? It's going to be fun to see how this all plays out. It's also going to be fun to see where the Rams ultimately end in the postseason. As of right now, they're going to get a bowl bid. I laid it out last weekend. I don't see any scenarios where the Rams don't get a bowl bid this year, especially if they win 7+ games. I don't think there's going to be enough bowl eligible teams in the conference anyways for it to be an issue. But have gotten some snarkiness from people that have said it's technically not accurate reporting to say they are bowl bound. I guess technically they don't have the bid because you don't know where they're going, but they're going to be in the postseason. It's semantics at this point. The whole process has changed so much over the years. There's just so many bowls these days. Going through kind of the most recent bowl projections, ESPN has been very steady with them projecting CSU to the Hawaii Bowl. That's an ESPN bowl, so that does say something. It does seem like there's a pretty good chance the Rams end up in Hawaii. That's a Christmas Eve bowl. I've talked about it before. It wouldn't be my favorite scenario just because I think it would really limit the amount of Ram fans that would be able to experience it. This program has not been to a bowl since 2017. I would much prefer somewhere like, Phoenix or Dallas, or even the New Mexico Bowl would be great. I understand it's not the most luxurious bowl of all time, but just it'd be a bit of a bummer for a lot of people to not be able to experience it in person. That said, you would have a pretty good national platform. You're the only college football game going that day. There might be some NFL games that day, but you don't have a ton of competition sports-wise on Christmas Eve, less so than Christmas Day. ESPN, they have us in the Hawaii Bowl against Western Kentucky. Both of their leading analysts have the Rams projected against Western Kentucky. Hilltoppers 6-2, currently 4-2 in Conference USA. The Action Network and Brett McMurphy, he has us playing Memphis, who is 7-2. They're only 3-2 in league play though, so they've kind of slipped out of the conference championship race, likely at least. Who else we got? We got the Potato Bowl, according to a couple of different outlets. CBS Sports has us playing Ohio. Western Michigan is who Athlon has us playing. And 247 Sports has Toledo in the Potato Bowl. Admittedly, I don't think any of those projections get people jumping for joy. Probably the least two desirable locations in terms of the most realistic outcomes for the Rams. I think there's a lot of scenarios that would be better than that. The Frisco Bowl, the Boca Raton Bowl, the Arizona Bowl, the New Mexico Bowl, the LA Bowl, any of those I think would be better options, but we'll just have to see. I will say, if the Rams made it to the Mountain West Championship game, for instance, I don't see them ending up in the Potato Bowl. I do think there's still a world in which they end up in the Hawaii Bowl because I think that's a valuable a bowl game for ESPN. I think they try and put the best possible G5 matchup that they can essentially in that one. But keep winning. And, the bowl projections are only going to get better. You can only control what you can control at this point. We're going to play some video from Jay Norvell here in just a second. I'm also going to talk about what the Rams have been doing well that's allowed them to have success in the conference slate, kind of what the keys are for them to be able to sustain the success going into the last month of the season. It's been a long time since the Rams have had an opportunity to potentially play for a conference championship. We'll see if they can seize it. Big shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat this morning. Much love to all you guys for rocking with us. This is just a knockoff Isaiah Stevens jersey. Taylor wants to know, where is it from? From one of those Chinese websites, to be honest. I got it as a gift from a Ram fan last year, which was awesome. I don't know if he wants me to say his name publicly or not, so I'll keep his identity secret. But big love to all of Ram Nation for rocking with us. A lot of love to Coors Light as well, guys. Life can get chaotic between social media, between work, between, the current landscape in this country with the results this week. I'm sure some people are feeling stressed. Other people are feeling stoked. But it's all about how you respond in those situations, guys. It's all about, rolling with the punches, dealing with adversity, doing the little things like getting some exercise, getting out in the sun when you can. Not a great time right now, obviously, given the weather, but you just want to choose a chill mindset each and every day. Once you do, maybe you kick back, you crack open an ice cold Coors Light when the mountains turn blue. Cold as the Rockies, Coors Light is cold lagered, cold filtered, and cold packaged for a smooth finish. When you embrace the chill mindset, it's a good time to choose chill and crack open a Coors Light. Make the most out of the times you choose to chill and choose Coors Light. Get Coors Light delivered straight to your door with Instacart by going to CoorsLight.com/DNVR. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. I also want to shout out Game Time, who is making it easier than ever to get access to everything. They have got just a surplus of tickets to live sports, to theater, to comedy, you name it. Game Time has got it. Game Time has this awesome new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets to your favorite live events even easier. What the Game Time Picks feature does is it filters out all the fluff. One of the things about Game Time is they have such an insane selection that you have a million options, but that can be a little bit overwhelming, especially if you're in a time crunch. This is just going to show you the best of the best. It's a nice little curation feature to, again, make your life easier, which is what Game Time is all about. You get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy, so you make sure you're not in a bad section, like right next to the bathroom or within an obstructed view, something like that. You just want to take all the guesswork out of buying your tickets, and you can do so with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that code DNVR for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account, redeem that code DNVR for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, moving on. Almost got myself in trouble there. Let's play the first video from Jay Norvell. He is going to be talking about how the Rams have had a lot of backup players stepping up. I mean, you had Brian Hansen filling in for Patty Turner these last couple weeks. No Jack Howell over the weekend. And because of that, we saw Jet Vincent, get some playing time. Aiden Hector got the start. A lot of guys are stepping up in clutch situations for CSU. So here's that video of Jay Norvell talking about the backup players stepping up and on pushing for a Mountain West title, because these are the games that really define your season.
I can't tell you how proud I am of our backup players. Trevin Heil had to step up for Jacob Gardner when Jacob got hurt. Aiden Hector, Jet Vincent had to step up for Jack Howell, and the guys we had in the back end, Jalen Gardner still out. And then Brian Hansen for Patty Turner. I mean, those guys, their performances were critical to our success. And it's going to be important that we keep having our backups step up. It's that time of year where kids get hurt, people get nicked up, and, we've lost some good players. Obviously with Torrey, some of our other guys that have been out, it's important that these backups step up. What's important now? We're in a bye week. Our kids got to go back to practice. We've had 2 great practices and continue to improve and get better. That's really we don't feel like we've played our best football yet. That's really important. We just finished the 3rd quarter. We won 3 straight in the 3rd quarter, and now we're embarking on, the most important quarter of the season. We work all year long to be able to compete for a championship in November. And so we're in position to do that. And now every week becomes more and more important. We're in a playoff mode mindset right now to where every week we got to win in advance. And that's where we are. And so all of our focus is on getting better this week and then all on Wyoming next week. Couple of things about this game. We're getting ready to play a big rival, obviously, playing the border war, playing for the boot. 125 years this game's been played. And so it's a very important game. We got a big call out to all of our students to get their tickets, to show up early and really make a difference in this game. It could be our 4th sellout in Canvas this fall. And we just want to make this a memorable November, and our students and our home fans can really do that for us. I'm proud of our football team. We're doing a lot of things that have not been done around here in a long time. And one of those is off the field. We've got 64 players working on a 3-point average, and we got 28 players working on a 4.0, which has not been done around here before. And so the success is just not on the field, but it's off the field. It's everything that our kids are doing. It's all the hard work that they're putting in, being focused and trying to be their very best. And, I'm not a fortune teller, and I don't intend to be, but we've got a chance to do some really special things if we continue to be focused and continue to work the way that we have. And it's my goal that our entire staff and our team is their very best in the month of November. And so, there's an old saying, you always remember the games in November, and we want to be able to remember these next 3 games when the season's over.
All right. I wanted to play that audio or video, I suppose, because I just feel like it does a nice job of setting the scene for what's at stake for the Rams over this last month. This team has fought like hell, and I've been very proud, of the fight that they've showed, especially after a couple of tough losses. I feel like under different circumstances, a lot of CSU teams after that Oregon State game, they just crumble. And to the Rams' credit, they've really played well over the last month. We're going to talk about some of the things that they're doing well, and hopefully they're able to push for a Mountain West championship. Been far too long. It's been 22 years since the Rams won a conference title. That was back before the current format. They didn't have a title game back then. CSU's never played in the Mountain West title game since they introduced that format. I wanted to lay out some of the things that the Rams are doing well and have allowed them, to be in this position going into the last month. Have not been a lot of years over the last 2 decades where, going into the 2nd week in November, not only was CSU still alive and well in the title race, but, they're really aiming high, for a big season, have an opportunity to win the most games since 2014. I mean, there's a lot at stake here for the Rams. One of the biggest factors for CSU, especially in conference games, and one of the big things that's allowed them to have success on both sides of the ball, they're winning on 3rd down on both sides. It's been such a big factor. I think they allowed Oregon State to go 50% that night. I just remember rambling post-game about how frustrating it was. There was a lot of 3rd and longs that they gave up. They gave up a lot of first downs via penalty. And that has not really been the case very often for the Rams this year. They're actually the 2nd least penalized team in the Mountain West. Teams against CSU have also been the least penalized, so the Rams not getting a lot of calls the other way. But I feel like they've responded well. And on 3rd down in particular, I feel like that was one of the biggest factors against Nevada. Jay Norvell mentioned that in his presser. If you want to see the whole video, spoke for almost 20 minutes. I posted that on Twitter. You can find it on the DNVR Sports YouTube as well. Just go to the videos section. Over the last 4 games, the Rams have held their opponents to just 31% on third down. They're converting 46% of the time. That's a 15% difference in a 4-quarter game. That's pretty significant. That's the difference between 2 or 3 successful drives or not a lot of the time. And I just feel like the ability to get off the field has been so important for CSU. Early on in the year, they were not doing that well, and they were getting torched in the red zone. Both of those areas, particularly on the defensive side, have been big, and it's why at the moment CSU has the best scoring defense in the Mountain West at about 21 points a game. Another big factor for the Rams, and anybody that's watching would notice it's been special teams. ESPN ranks CSU as the #1 efficient special teams unit in the entire country, not the Mountain West, in the FBS. And it makes sense when you look at what the Rams are doing right now. They have 24 punts inside the 20. 3 different individuals, I think at this point, have 5 inside the 20 between Patty Turner, Brian Hansen, and BFN quietly has been really good in those pooch kick scenarios. That's insane. They have 9 more punts inside the 20 than the next most in the league, and they don't have a single touchback this season. The punt game has been phenomenal for the Rams, and it's led to drastically more favorable starting field position. You're helping your defense out in a major way, and pinning the opposing offense back, making them drive the length of the field, which is challenging to do. And offensively, you're getting pretty favorable starts. The Rams have had good return men. They've obviously housed a couple of punt returns this year. I'm really, really impressed by what CSU is doing on special teams. I would say Jordan Noyes is the most clutch kicker of my lifetime for CSU. I understand that if you look at the raw stats, because they allow him to go out and attempt those long field goals, they're maybe not going to be quite as impressive as some guys. Like, he's not going to be above 90% for his career or anything like that. But when you talk about big kicks of distance and in, really crucial scenarios, he has just been money. I mean, whether it was the UNLV kick last year, he was great against Boise State. This season he's got 2 made field goals of 58 or more yards. Both of them were huge and field goals they needed in conference wins. To be able to have special teams, not just as an area where the Rams are, kind of skating by, where they're holding their own, it's not a liability. They're kicking ass on special teams. And I would argue that special teams have been the biggest difference in at least 2 wins, if not 3, for CSU this year. It's been really, really impressive. Taylor wants to know, does last week's special teams touchdown count towards a kickoff return touchdown? I don't know how you would mark that, like from a category standpoint. I don't think it counts as a return technically. I've never seen a team score that way at this level. Maybe in like a little league football game or something like that. But Jay Norvell was laughing about it too. He's never seen a team score that way. But one of the things that he highlighted, and I think is important to add, is while Nevada certainly messed up that play, they failed to secure the knuckling, ball, and it put them in a precarious position down by the goal line. You've got to credit the Rams for the hustle on that play. I mean, Caleb Goody was flying down the field and he blew that guy up. Jace Bella lands on the ball in the end zone, but there was like 3 guys down there that could have scored for CSU. There's 4 Rams in the picture for only 1 Nevada player. I mean, that's all effort. That's all hustle. And if I had to say anything has been the biggest difference for this team, along with toughness, I think they've just responded better during difficult situations than teams in the past. It's that you're getting a lot of big time plays from a lot of guys and you're seeing all out effort. It just feels like the buy-in is there in a way that it wasn't necessarily always. I think the attention to detail has been, significant for CSU in every phase of the game. Offensively, Charlie talks about here thoughts on BFN's maturity under center. I think he has been phenomenal. 3 straight games without a pick. I think his growth in this offense has been really, really significant and not something that should be understated. It's not an easy thing to go from being a guy that's playing under the gun your entire career, seeing the field that way, to now being under center. Now, I think it's a really good thing for the offense. I think it makes us less predictable. Some of that has to do with play call. Obviously, if you line up in under center and run the ball 8 straight times, that's a little bit predictable. But sometimes you're whooping an opponent in the trenches so much you're able to do that. I do think moving forward, one of the big keys for CSU, along with continuing to run the football with consistency and eliminating some of the fumbles. That's been an issue. Obviously, the Rams they put 2 on the ground last week. One was only officially because Morrow was rolled down, I guess. Caleb Goody's fumble. Dane Olson ends up recovering it. But you got to run the ball with consistency. But I want to see them continue to build off of that. I think the play action plays are going to be key for whether CSU is going to be able to be a team that scores like 30 plus. I think hitting on those explosives is massive. They were so close last week to finally putting the type of offensive performance that I have been clamoring for that I think would ease the minds of a lot of Ram fans, because I understand like what they're doing right now. It's not the flashiest approach. It's not the sexiest brand of football. Maybe not necessarily the most fun to watch even. But what it is it's sustainable. It's a way that you can compete. It's a way that you can dictate the tempo, win in the trenches. You can, limit how much your opposing offense is going to be on the field. Like all of these are such big factors. The big key for the Rams, because they're able to run the ball a lot, but it's hard to do that 9-10 times a game. If you're getting 8 drives, it's hard to run the ball all the way down the field 8 consecutive times. If you can hit on a couple of these explosive plays over the top, you should have had a passing touchdown to Jordan Ross last week that he just drops. You had a 41-yard passing touchdown taken away for what I thought was kind of a ticky-tacky holding call. I mean, that's 2 massive plays. And if you break those out all of a sudden, and instead of this being even as close as it was, and it wasn't that close, a 17-point win, it's probably like a 30-point win. And that's really been, I think, what has left some people a little bit skeptical at this point. I think they bought into the effort defensively. I think they understand the benefit of running the ball. But I think a lot of people are just wanting to see CSU be a little bit more explosive. And they're right there, man. Like the plays were there. They had them dialed up, you schemed it up perfectly. They're there for the taking. They've just got to execute a little bit better. I mean, drops have been a consistent issue for the program this year, unfortunately. At times, I feel like there have been some balls where receivers need to fight back for them more. But I do feel like the passing offense is making great strides. And I understand that if you're just peeking at the box scores, you're not going to understand what this team is doing right now. And you're probably going to try and poke holes in it. But I'm telling you, man, this is how you win games when the season is on the line and when things really matter. It's by running the ball. It's by winning defensively. And it's by kicking ass on special teams, which I'm just going to continue to pound the table for, because so many people try and poke holes in that and be like, oh, if they didn't have that fluky special teams play, it would have been a whole lot closer. Okay, but they're doing it every single week. At some point, that's not a fluke anymore. You're blocking kicks. You blocked a punt and you've blocked a field goal this year. Both were really crucial and much needed. You've returned 2 punts for touchdowns in games where you really needed the spark offensively. In this game, after stalling a little bit, you kick a field goal, but you make a special teams touchdown out of pure effort and hustle. I mean, that's a testament to the effort level from these players, but also just for their attention to detail. And I really think Tommy Perry, the special teams coordinator, deserves so much praise, because we have watched what it looks like when special teams are not a point of emphasis for your team. When you try and do the, coach special teams by committee approach, it just never works out, because guys are always inherently going to be more focused on their primary responsibility. If you're a running backs coach, how much detail are you really focusing on, kick coverage and stuff like that. I think it's been such a fresh of breath air to have this approach, and it's really made a big difference for the Rams. And I wouldn't be surprised if, they have another big special teams player to these next couple of weeks that potentially ends up being, the big difference in why they're able to, maybe play for a Mountain West championship. The Rams have gone back-to-back games without a turnover. That's been a big key. Admittedly, you got lucky that Dane Olson recovered Caleb Goody's fumble. That's a massive momentum swing one way or the other. It ends up going in CSU's favor. Again, though, while there's some luck involved, you don't get that fortunate outcome if you're not giving your all, if you're not busting your ass to get downfield. And that's what Dane Olson does each and every week. That Armani Winfield touchdown against San Jose State, where he catches it near the line of scrimmage. I think it was 62 yards, takes it to the house. Dane Olson makes the highlight. Why? Because he's 40 yards downfield blocking. He has an incredible catch on 3rd and 11, a 45-yard reception this past weekend where he lays out, keeps the drive alive. A couple plays later, the Rams end up scoring. Second drive, similar deal. Caleb Goody, 55-yard reception. Oh no, he gets stripped. It's about to be one. Those are so deflating too. Like when you think it's going to be a big explosive play and it ends up going the other way, like that's such a massive momentum swing. Dane Olson salvages it. 2 plays later, Justin Marshall scampers into the end zone. I thought he deserved a game ball for his efforts in that win. He has been so impressive. But I think one of the things that's been huge for CSU is just having multiple guys step up and be dependable. It takes a village to be able to push for a conference championship right now. And, whether it's Dane Olson or Brian Hansen or, some of the young guys that are coming in and making plays, Andrew Lorich and Dylan Phelps, like there's so many guys you could point to. It's nice to see CSU be in a position where they're not solely dependent on one individual. It's not a situation where if Torrey doesn't go for 200 yards and 3 touchdowns, they don't even have a chance to be competitive. They've got multiple guys stepping up in the backfield. They've got multiple guys stepping up in the trenches. They are playing complementary football right now. They're winning the turnover margin. They're +6 over the last 4 weeks, back-to-back weeks without a turnover. As far as I can tell, and I went through game logs for every game since 2000, the Rams have not this century gone 3 straight games without committing a turnover. So if they could play turnover-free football against Wyoming, that would be a historical moment. I did not double check it. I went through it pretty thoroughly, tried to go slow, go through the game logs. So don't, hold me to it necessarily. But if it did happen, it obviously has not happened very much, but I'm pretty sure CSU has never gone 3 games without an offensive turnover this century. So big opportunity coming up here. I'm going to play another video of Jay Norvell talking about the importance of glue guys, kind of giving some insight into what I've been preaching about here. And specifically the type of effort from Dane Olson and how important it's been for the Rams, especially of late.
That maybe on paper aren't the most talented, but they just show up and give you everything they have. And we've talked about that openly. I mean, it was our goal to start this season for everybody to be their very best. And that's really all we're focusing on every week. We're not focused on the outcome of games or, we're focused on being prepared to be your very best. And Dane is an amazing example of that. I told one of my old coaches from Iowa, Dan McCarney hit me up this week and he asked about the game and the team. And I just said, Coach, it's just a lot of fun. We got a bunch of unselfish guys. And it reminds me of our old days when we were in college, when we had a bunch of blue-collar guys that just fought for each other, didn't care who got the credit. And that's what Dane Olson's doing. And it's really making a big difference.
If you are a DNVR diehard, make sure you go check out the feature that I published last night on Dane Olson being the ultimate glue guy for CSU. I love that quote from Jay Norvell. A bunch of blue-collar guys, fighting selflessly, not caring about who gets the glory. It's just a bunch of dudes laying out and sacrificing for the betterment of the team. And, I asked Chase Wilson about, what's the reaction been seeing a guy like Dane Olson getting more of an opportunity and really seizing that moment. And he said it's exciting, but it's not at all surprising because that's the type of guy Dane Olson has been. He has always approached it the right way, walks on in 2019, really doesn't see any type of significant action until 2022 when he blocked a punt against Utah State. He started against Hawaii as well, had a couple of catches that year. Last year saw his role reduced a little bit, but he sticks around. Did he quit? No, he stuck around. He didn't come into the year anticipating that he was going to be getting these opportunities, but he stayed ready. And now that his number's being called, he's a guy I'd like to see get even more opportunities offensively because he runs great routes. He's got sure hands, and that he is going to bust his ass every single play. And you need glue guys like Dane Olson to be a winning football team. So big shout out to the Dane train. If you're like me, you are always trying to get ahead with your money. That's why I recommend Premier Members Credit Union. They're a financial institution based right here in Colorado. With PMCU, you get local branches, friendly tellers, and the tools you need to save smarter, like a reverse tier money market. Whatever your goals, they can help. PMCU is all about creating a better banking experience for their community. So why not see what they can do for you? Check out becomepremier.com to find out more. I also want to talk to you guys about an awesome initiative from UC Health. We've been talking about it a lot, the Ready, Set, Co initiative. UC Health wants to help you and other Coloradans be your healthiest selves by joining the Ready, Set, Co challenge. One of the pillars in this year's challenge is sleep. When you get 8 hours of sleep, you're rested, you're prepared, you're ready. Sleep is such an integral part of our overall health, and we need you to prioritize getting 8 hours of quality sleep a night. So much happens when you sleep, from your physical well-being to neurological benefits. It's one of the main ways to get and keep yourself healthy. I'm telling you, don't sleep on sleep. Make it a priority. If you want to join UC Health's Ready, Set, Co challenge, click the link in the show notes or go to www.uchealth.org/ready-set-co. All right here. You know, I got this challenge coin from Jay Norvell when he came into studio a couple years. It was something that meant a lot to me. I've never tweeted about it. I've never talked about it publicly. I've always known that I would mention it at some point on the show. I figured I would wait until, like if they would have beaten CU, I'm sure I would have brought it up that night. But I just want to read what it says on the back. They give these to, who they view to be allies of the program. But it says, by with and through respect, accountability, and hustle, Colorado State football will develop a family and brotherhood forged by grit, compelled by greatness, and committed to excellence. I really feel like the team has embraced that mindset this year, that team first mentality, that gritty, we're going to keep fighting for 4 quarters type attitude that has been missing. The Rams have had plenty of talent over the years. The amount of times they've objectively had the best offensive or defensive player in the league, it's pretty high, even over the last, decade, and without the lack of success. The fight of this team has given them an opportunity here going into the last month. Now, obviously, if you lose to Wyoming, a lot of the good juju you've got going, a lot of the good vibes, I don't say they completely go out the window, because you are bowl eligible for the first time since 2014. You would still have an opportunity to have an 8-win regular season. I mean, that hasn't happened all that often in CSU's history. But if you can win this border war, man, all of a sudden, the buy-in from the community, it's just going to be so significant. It'd be the first time you've won 2 trophy games since 2015. And it sets you up, obviously, for a really favorable, last couple of weeks. That trip to Fresno, it's a tough one. It doesn't look as daunting as it did early on in the year. And when you go through the history, I mean, Fresno is a place that CSU's had success of late. They're 3-1 in games at Fresno going back to 2006. Their only loss with the dude on the sidelines, shocker. 5-2 overall since 2006, 10-6 all time against Fresno State. The Bulldogs were a thorn in CSU's side a couple of times, in the early 2000s. A lot of you listening to the podcast probably didn't follow CSU football back then, but they were definitely a pain in our ass when I was a little kid. And if you win that, obviously, you set the stage for what would be the most important conference game in Canvas Stadium history. I don't know if you could argue. I mean, you could argue that it's more important than some of the big non-conference games that have been there, like Oregon State, CU this year. I still think those probably had a little bit bigger of a spotlight. But I mean, senior day with an opportunity to play your way into the conference title game for the first time, that's pretty significant. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see like how the Rams can handle this last moment. And admittedly, like there's always going to be that lingering feeling in the back of your mind of they're gonna find a way to mess this up. You're just waiting for the other shoe to fall. But I do have a level of trust with this team that stems not from like talent, because they've always had talent. It's about how hard they play. It's about the fight that they're showing. And honestly, it's about the level of execution that they're having on both sides of the ball. They're playing complementary football in a way that we have not seen in a really long time. And if you win out, you're in the title game. Likely a really tough trip to Boise State looming, but you play the games. I mean, anything can happen in that scenario. And technically speaking, there's still an outside shot that you could host the title game. If Boise State drops one of their final four and you win out, I don't anticipate it. I mean, you look at Boise's schedule, they're going to dog walk Nevada this weekend at home. Then they go to San Jose State and Wyoming. Don't anticipate them tripping up against the Spartans. You never know in Laramie, especially in late November. It could be a cold game. Like, wonky stuff happens there. They do host Oregon State to close the season. Oregon State really kind of hanging on by a thread here. They've been beat up and suffered some injuries. So again, like, I don't anticipate it, but you never know. It's not completely out of the possibility as of now. And that's what's fun. That's what every fan base wants, is just hope, the opportunity to play relevant football and to matter, when the lights are brightest. And that just has not been the case with CSU very often over the last couple of decades. You have a really exciting month here. And if you can live up to this opportunity ahead of you, this team is going to be, revered and remembered in a way that, like, the 2014 team was, the 2002 Rams. I understand that those ones had probably a little bit more juice, just based on the type of teams that they beat. But honestly, if you go back and you look at that 2014 season, they didn't beat a ton of great teams, like, just keeping it real. You got to play the schedule that you have, and you have to take advantage of those opportunities. CSU has not done that very much over the years. They're doing it right now. We'll see if they can continue to do so over these final 3 weeks, but you got to win the border war. You got to beat this Wyoming team. They're not good. They're playing better. Seems like they found a spark offensively with Caden Anderson. A couple of losses, they were right there and just kind of found a way to mess it up. I thought their comeback against New Mexico was impressive, although, God, do the Lobos just beg teams to beat them with the way they shoot themselves in the foot with penalties, stupid turnovers. Like, as electric as Dampier is, he's had some really bad turnovers of late, and it's cost them. And that's a big step for a team, is getting out of their own way. And I do feel like the Rams have done a much better job of getting out of their own way of late. We'll see if they can take it to the next level. All right, we're going to get into the Mountain West Power Rankings before we get out of here. This is the highest I've ever had CSU football on the Power Rankings on the football side. We'll start at the bottom, go to the top. Coming at the bottom, I think it's pretty easy. You've got Air Force at number 12. They're 1-7 overall, winless in the league. Just got their butts kicked by Army. They've just looked terrible. I mean, it might be a 1-win season for Air Force, though. They're always going to play hard, so it wouldn't shock me if they ended up stealing one late against somebody. They've got this weekend. They've got Fresno State coming to town. If Fresno's not careful, they could be in a pretty bad spot here going into the end of the year. Nevada, I got them at 11. They play hard. They're 3-7, but they're losers of 3 straight, 0-4 in the league. Just trending in the wrong direction. Utah State, we've got at 10. They're 2-6 right now, 1-3 in league play. Just barely ahead of Nevada because they do have a league win. Offensively, they figured some stuff out, but it's going to be a long year for Aggies fans as well. I like the quarterback situation at New Mexico slightly better. That's why I've got New Mexico 3-6 at 9. They're 2-3 in the league. They've lost 2 straight, though. Again, kind of trending in the wrong direction here. Wyoming at 8th is the highest that we've had them in a long time. 2-7 overall, 2-3 in league play, though. Should have beat San Diego State, too, to be honest. I mean, they probably should be 3-6 right now, and I'm glad they're not. I'm glad they don't have the opportunity to reach a bowl still, because that would just make them that much more hungry coming into Fort Collins. I'm sure you're still going to get a great effort from Wyoming. Nonetheless, they would love to play spoilers and prevent us from making a title game. But Wyoming playing hard. They do have a lot of experience. You still got to trust that team, or you still got to, respect that team going into the matchup. San Diego State, I've got them at 7. Again, trending the wrong direction. They're 3-5 overall, 2-1, but they've lost 2 straight. They're frisky every week. They hang around. They got a young quarterback, but the depth isn't quite there yet, particularly on the defensive side. I've got Hawaii at 6. They're trending the right direction. We are fans of Timmy Chang and Hawaii in this house. We root for Timmy Chang. They're 4-5. They're 2-2. Got an opportunity to play their way into a bowl game after upsetting Fresno State on the road. They overcame a double-digit fourth quarter deficit. Brutal loss if you're Fresno State, but really could be a transformative moment for Hawaii under Timmy Chang. They played hard. I mean, they've had like at least 5 true upsets over the last 2 years. They've lost some games that they probably should have won too, but I do feel like they're going the right direction, and it's cool to see. Mountain West is more fun when Hawaii is interesting. San Jose State, I've got them at 5. I almost dropped them below Hawaii, but sitting at 5-3. This is a big weekend for them because they are really trending the wrong direction, and they're starting to get beat up a little bit. Fresno at 4, I considered dropping them. I'm not sure we've seen enough out of San Jose State and Hawaii to justify them above Fresno just yet, but they're 5-4, 3-2 in the league. We dropped UNLV to 3. They're 6-2. They're 2-1 in the league, but they have an opportunity, I think, to get back in that top 2. But I'm putting CSU at 2 right now because I think they're really hot. If they played UNLV, I do think they would be underdogs. But the Rams are 4-0 in league play. They're taking advantage. And again, this isn't about conference standings. It's kind of a temperature read. And UNLV, they've lost a couple of frustrating games between Syracuse and Boise State. I wouldn't say that they're trending down, but maybe just a little bit more stagnant. Whereas it feels like CSU kind of on the ascension at the moment. Boise State at 1, 7-1, 4-0 in the league. Don't think you can really argue with that. Before we get out of here and I do some picks, I had somebody ask me to rank the Rams wide receivers: Rashard Higgins, Michael Gallup, Preston Williams, and Torrey Horton. This one kind of depends on how you frame the list. Preston Williams, from a talent standpoint, one of the most gifted individuals I've ever seen play football. It's why he was a 5-star prospect. He had a really impressive individual year. Probably one of the worst teammates that's ever played for CSU. I think in a lot of ways, the special treatment he got inside that program was a big part of the demise of the Bobo era. And it wasn't just Preston Williams, to be fair. There were a couple of guys that got some preferential treatment. I don't think it was good for the program, especially as some of those losses started to add up in some of those tight games. I would not personally put Preston Williams in my top 4 or top 5 of wide receivers. 1, because he was not here long enough. But 2, it's kind of personal, but he's obviously very gifted. So out of these 4, I would put him 4. But show some love for David Anderson. David Anderson's a top 2 receiver probably in program history. Not just because he put up big stats. That boy was nasty. Go back and watch the highlights. I'm telling you, he would thrive in this era too. But if these are the 4 we're going with, this is on the fly, I'll go Rashard 1, Torrey 2, Gallup 3, Preston Williams 4. But that's obviously very subjective, and all those guys have had a ton of talent. There's been no shortage of receiver talent in CSU football history. All right, let's do these Mountain West picks, and let's get on out of here. Friday night game, we've got New Mexico at San Diego State. San Diego State 2.5-point favorites against the Lobos. Daring me to take UNM. I think if the Lobos can prevent some of the turnovers that have costed them, this is a winnable game for them. San Diego State playing for their season, essentially. I'm gonna stick with Dampier because I've hyped him up so much. I can't turn my back on him at this stage. But I'm very uncomfortably taking UNM to cover that 2.5 on the road. San Jose State going to Oregon State. Oregon State 3-point favorites. Both these teams trending in the wrong direction, but give me the Beavers at home to cover the 3. I just don't understand what San Jose State's doing with the quarterback position right now. Nevada, they're going to Boise State. Boise 24-point favorites. Give me the Broncos to cover the 24. Nevada kind of feels like they've maybe thrown in the towel here. UNLV 13.5-point favorites at Hawaii. That one smells a little funny to me. Not giving any love to Hawaii at home. I understand UNLV is a great team. They should win this one. 13.5 is a lot on the island. Give me Hawaii to cover that as home dogs. Not going to be so bold to say they pull off the upset, but I do think they can keep it relatively tight, maybe lose by like 10. Fresno, 10.5-point favorites at Air Force. Massive game for them. I just have not seen enough out of Air Force's offense to believe they're going to hang around. And even though I don't have a ton of faith in Fresno at the moment, I could see them winning like 24-10 and covering that 10.5. So give me the Bulldogs. Finally, Utah State going to Washington State. Wazoo 20.5-point favorites against the Aggies. That's a lot of points. 3 touchdowns. I will say, though, Washington State playing for a potential shot at the playoff. Give me the Cougars at home. I think offensively, I just don't know if Utah State has the answers for Washington State at this point. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. Big shout out to everybody in the Toyota chat. This was a really fun show. I'll be going live tomorrow morning as well. Same time, same place. No post-game show this weekend, obviously. But I will have some podcasts this weekend coming out because we've got basketball Friday night. Should be a very winnable opportunity for the Rams. Make sure everybody stays safe out there. Sounds like it could snow like up to a foot. Winter is here, but that's when you play the games that really matter. Much love, y'all. I'm always proud to be. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.